Hello and welcome to Keep Hope Alive. We have a great show for you today. We got Miss Holly Bott with us. She's an author, a blogger, and superwoman. Welcome, Holly. I'm so happy you came on the show.
Thank you. I'm
But
so happy to be here.
I'm excited because your story is wow. That's all I'm going to say, listeners.
Yeah.
Wow. You want to listen to the show, the whole show, because she's been through a lot and has a lot to teach us. So, but before we get started, Holly, I got a quick question for you. Okay.
Yep.
How many weddings have you actually been to in the past 15 years?
Two. Been to two weddings. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So usually, like if you're a guest going into a wedding, and say it's the ceremony part, the guests come in and they usually have to sign something. What is that thing they have to sign?
You sign a guest book.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so one of our biggest sponsors here is lifeonrecord.com. And what they do, instead of the guest book, they bring a vintage rotary phone. So your guests are walking into this beautiful decorated like area with this vintage phone. I wish I had the phone with me because it's so cute. But they pick it up and they can leave a message for a minute, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30, but it's a wedding. So let's and you can use this for any kind of event too. But you can say, hey guys, congratulations on your wedding. Or maybe the groomsman picks it up and says, hey, it's about time you actually put a ring on her finger. I'm so excited for you too. So, it's fun. I call it the gift of voice and hearing your friends and family talk it out instead of reading a book. That's kind of cool to me. So, right next to the phone, they have a QR code. So your guests can take out their mobile phone, scan that, and either before or after the wedding, they can leave a message. And once all these messages get collected by the guest, they will either burn it on a 12-inch vinyl record or they have a keepsake speaker they can put it on. I call it the little boom box. It's really cute. It's all personalized and everything. So you get to keep the phone number for 1 year. Plans start at $99, which is really, really cool. Now, I say if this is a marriage, a wedding you're using it for, a little tidbit, you have it for a year. So tell your guests to call back that number like 2 months before your 1 year and say happy anniversary before it goes away. Then you collect more. So, but to find out more information about them, please visit www.lifeonrecord.com. All right. So, Holly, my first question for you is who is Holly Bot?
Well, when I think about that, I'm kind of reminded that I read once long ago, every decade an adult person is different than the decade before. They're almost a different person. And when I was younger in my 20s, I thought that's ridiculous. Silly. I have a plan and just going to live the plan. But I think really that that's true because we learn so much, and so um, you might even have a different career. You might be living somewhere else, but you're also internally, all the stuff that you've learned has changed you. And so who I am today or right now is a person I really like, and I'm happy to share it with you. Um, I spent 8 years in prison, and I've been out of prison for 5 years. And I think a lot of people believe a prison sentence of any length is a death sentence, whether you've killed your reputation or hopes or dreams or something, right? But when you're the person receiving the sentence, and my sentence was 12 years, and in Minnesota, you serve 2/3 of it. So I served 8. You are concerned. What does this impact have on the rest of my life? Right? Is it? And so I was very fortunate in that I met some women who were confident, and they mentored me, other inmates, but also staff at the prison and people that they would bring in as special speakers, and really gave me kind of an eye of, I think, of one who was the most surprising to me, that the prison offered college classes. So we could take college classes as inmates.
That's
And I
cool.
had, yeah, I had tried to take college when I was younger and just dropped out my first semester. So I'd never really, but who wouldn't want to? I've got this time. I want to do something better. So I signed up for a college class, and the teacher came in. She had a PhD in sociology. And she said, "You know what? I want to encourage all the women here." She said, "You see me as this teacher with a PhD, a professor, but I spent 5 years in prison." And she said, "When I did, I only had a high school diploma and I took their education classes." And I was so encouraged and motivated by the education in prison that they told me, "You should continue your education." She said, so I did. And I went and all the way to getting my PhD. And now I'm here and I'm teaching you. And I was shocked because her story resonated so much with me that there's hope for me, not just a little bit of hope, a small amount of happiness, but I can really be meaningful and purposeful. And so she radically altered my view. And then I wanted to explore what else. And so I've been out of prison 5 years and have had a lot of good successes. And I continue to communicate with my friends who are still incarcerated and visit them and email them to let them know, make sure that you're on that same track of, you have hope and everything's going to be great for you. And so I think that's who I am right now, is accumulation of all of those people.
That is
And I
so
don't know,
cool.
yeah, I don't know if I would define myself by a career role, or maybe even I mean, I'm a wife and I'm a mom and a author and podcaster and stuff. But really, I think my motivation in doing all of those things is loving on other people.
Yeah.
And I did not do that well in my past. And so I'm learning how to do that now. I really think that's why God even has me blogging or podcasting. It's not so I can
Mhm.
learn how to be a good talker or a good writer, but so I can meet people and be invested in those people and have meaningful relationships with people and practice it. You have to practice those skills. So yeah, I think that's me today.
Yeah, so the journey is just great, being a podcaster yourself, I mean, the way I look at it is, being heard, talking to all these new people around the world. People will go, "Are you making money from it?" And my thing is, it's not about the money. It's about bringing joy and
Yeah.
faith and love and peace all together in one place and getting to hear different kind of stories. That's what
Hmm.
makes the world turn around. I know that was soap opera, but it's just that's great. I mean, your story of, being in prison, but going to the schooling is amazing because that's something I never knew that they offered college
Hmm.
courses. I thought you just like stay in a cell, you're in there, you might have to mop floors, you get a break to go eat, go to the bathroom, you might get to walk outside for sunlight. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know how closed off it is. I don't know, in prison, do you get to watch TV? Do you get to read books? There's
Yeah.
many questions I've always had because, a lot, if we haven't
Yes.
been there, we haven't been there. It's,
I had never
so
been. Yep. So I had all the same, and anything I thought I knew, I got from the movies, from TV, all those kind of Hollywood ideas. I was really surprised when I got to prison and they're like, "You're going to have a job." I was like, "I'm going to have a job? There's jobs in prison." I'm going to go to work. That's kind of strange. And so it was a very interesting experience. I talk about that a little bit in my blog, how The prison I went to didn't even have a fence at all. And it was it went from minimum to super max. So imagine a super maximum security prison with no fence. And it was a large property. It's about a block, square.
Yeah.
And it's not all one building. It's about 10, 12 buildings. And so some of them are living units, like a little apart, like it's
Yeah.
just like a college campus with little dorms.
Got
That's
you.
where we live.
Okay.
And then you leave your dorm and you go to work or you go to a different building for the cafeteria and they have a
Mhm.
gym and a library. It's like this little town without a fence. And so I remember this was so surreal. They had this sports. You could sign up to play football or softball, and they had volleyball tournaments and basketball tournaments. And so I was like, okay, well, I want to do that. So I signed up for softball, and the softball field was on the very edge of the property. And it's next door is an elementary school.
Whoa. Okay. I'm sorry. My eyes are like, whoa. Okay.
And then across the street is just homes, like you're in an ordinary neighborhood.
Yeah.
So we would go out to the softball field and people would be walking their dogs and kids would be getting on the bus like maybe 10 or 15 feet from us, literally with nothing between us, no fence, nothing. And they'd watch us play softball and we just wore our gray t-shirts and our sweatpants or jeans, which was kind of prison outfit. So they knew that we were inmates and that they live next door. They know what this is. And we'd say hi and they'd say, hi, you having fun at your softball? Yeah, we are. Thanks. And they didn't even send a
Oh,
guard with us. So we didn't even have a guard supervising us. We had there was a gym teacher, which was like a guy that was
yeah.
employed to do health and fitness. And he went with, and there'd be like 30 of us women out there, feet from freedom. And so
That's
just a very surreal.
interesting. I know what my next question is, but maybe I can't even ask that. So I'm
Well,
gonna tread lightly.
they eventually built a fence. And the warden claimed that the warden at the time who had the fence built claimed it was for to prevent people from escaping. But that prison had been there for like 30 years. And one of the women that I knew quite well, she came back a lot, had been a previous escapee who'd been caught, right? So it only happened a handful of times and they were always caught. And even after that woman was caught and came back, there was no extra security for her. She still walked on the property without a fence, the same as everyone else. It was very strange. But I have friends there who are there for very serious offenses. Some of them have life sentences. And they said to me, this prison does not have a problem with security. It does not have a problem with people trying to escape because every night us lifers go to bed. And when this prison wakes up, we're still here. And there's no fence keeping us here. And so she was right, that's a true thing. But you could never do that for a men's prison. I just the men,
Probably.
no, the men I know who have been incarcerated just said that wouldn't be a thing. They'd all be gone.
They'd be all
So
running out, like getting their freedom, and oh my goodness.
yes,
I never thought of it that way at all. Like to hear there's no fence, you're putting a lot of faith and trust.
yeah,
So, maybe women are smarter than men. I don't know. We know not to run or anything like that. So,
yeah.
but my goodness. And in the time that you were there, like what was you talked about sports. What kind of job did you have?
So the prison has many different jobs depending on your education level and your skill level and your interests.
Mhm.
So they had like a quarterly magazine newspaper type thing that would come out. It was called The Reflector. And you could be the editor of The Reflector, or you could be the photographer for the
Oh,
Reflector,
fun.
which, fun jobs, right? Um, you could work in the library and help the librarian. You could work in the gym And if you worked in the gym, you were expected to help people when they were working out, kind of like you wouldn't necessarily be a fitness instructor, a fitness trainer, but I did work in the gym for a year, and everyone who worked in the gym wanted to be in the gym all the time. That's why they got the job. And they had tons of magazines, like fitness magazines. We were
Yeah.
reading them all the time. And so
Hmm.
they would be, you become the mentors for the people who come. Um, but there are also industry jobs where um, they would they had molded car parts and they would be trimming them and things like that, and so more of an assembly type thing.
Yeah.
And then women could learn cosmetology and get a cosmetology license. And so they had a school for the inmates on the property, and it was a year and a half long education to be licensed. And while the women were in school, anyone at prison could go use their services. It was like $2.50 for your hair to be colored or cut. And you could have all sorts. So who wasn't getting their
Wow.
hair done once a month?
Why is it
You
like
could get your
200 out in the world? I want like $2.50.
yeah,
So,
yeah. But it was, they want to invest in the women so that they have
yeah.
careers that they can rely on when they leave prison. So I did have the General Assembly job for a while, and I worked in the gym for a while. I was an English tutor for many years there. If you come without a high school diploma, then they want you to get your GED, right? So they have school on
Yeah.
site, and they need tutors. And so I did English GED tutoring, and I did that for years. Um, I also worked in the kitchen. I was the baker because I love dessert.
Ooh.
Yep. So
Cupcakes.
making making three-tiered cake for 800 people at a time, but I
Whoa.
was dishing it up like it was hostess. It was super fun because that's my favorite part of dinner. So I wanted it to be great. Um,
Yeah.
just lots of different jobs. You can be an electrician's apprentice or a painter's apprentice, or you could work on the grounds and you'd be planting the flowers and things. Just you name it.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
you would
Yeah.
just never think, right? But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I would have never thought any of that actually. So that's really cool to learn and stuff.
yeah.
Baking for that many people. I mean, like just to do a cake or cupcakes. How long were you in that kitchen for?
I worked there twice. I worked there once for a year, and I was like the one of the line cooks. They had an alternative menu where if you had any dietary concerns or you were vegan or something, that line
Yeah.
was for you. And so I was the cook on that line and
Okay.
made everything. Um, and that's what I did the first time I was in the kitchen. And then the second time I was only there for about 8 weeks. I had left the job as an English tutor and wanted to get some more education before I left. And they offered classes from a technical college that would come in, and it was on Microsoft Office, so
Okay, good. Good,
a
good, good.
certification in all that stuff. And so I took that right at the end of my stay in prison, and I graduated early. So then I
Yeah.
had another 6 weeks before I left. And so I requested to go to the kitchen. I wanted to be the baker for the last little bit of my
Oh.
stay. So that's what I did. Yeah.
Oh. So did it feel like time actually flew by fast, or was it just like, I don't want to say you were dreading it, but I don't know. Like I try to put myself in situations like what if it was me there? Like how would I feel? Like you go through all these different emotions when you first get there, I'm sure. Do they
Yes,
have
you do.
counselors on sites too?
They do, but some women that come to prison have really serious mental health issues. I don't even know how much to say about that. Some of them, like legitimate schizophrenia or other things, some of them just from past trauma and abuse in their lives. They come from very difficult places. So then they try to prioritize care if they
Yeah.
can to make sure that people who really are hurting can be helped. But they have quite a few mental health programs or groups that you can go to together. So right
Yeah.
after I was on suicide watch in prison, which was about 8 months, 7 or 8 months into my stay, um, as I was getting ready to be released from suicide watch, the director of the prison's mental health program called Women of Wellness, which we called the WOW program, she
Hmm.
contacted me and said, was just informed that you were being kept on suicide watch and you're being released. Do you want to come to our program? And that program was in the Monahan building, which was the mental health building for the prison. And so I had lost my job from being in SAG and everything. And I was still sad. It's not like I was magically better. I was just willing to be back in population. So I said, sure, I would, any help I can get. And when I went to their mental health unit, which is you actually live in the mental health unit, and it's this big building that has living areas, but it also has classrooms and psychiatric offices, and it's just multi-purpose. I looked in there, and Monahan was built after the rest of the prison was built. It was a later expansion. So it didn't look anything like the rest of the prison. It had purple walls or lilac walls.
Lilac. Okay. Okay, good.
It was just it was not quite as institutional looking.
Yeah,
And
good.
I felt a little bit like I had a break from prison, a little bit of relief. And then going through this group with other women in the mental health program, and it was 6 weeks. And it's like
Yeah.
group therapy, but then also having assessments and learning coping skills and things like that, but also being in this different setting just allowed my emotions to de-escalate, kind of feel better. So yeah, there's a lot
That
of options. Yeah.
I think, the lighter colors, like you were talking about lilac or, and, blues. I think of spa day retreats. I think those are just really good colors when you're, in a support group and trying
Yeah.
to work through things and everything. So that's really
Yeah.
cool. I'm glad they have this, and I'm glad it's all different buildings. I was thinking about that. So that's
Yeah.
really cool, that they
Yeah.
made it look like that and everything. So, reading a little bit about you, you also started to do blogging. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. So I had been a blogger. I started blogging in 2005,
Okay.
and prison interrupted my blogging. So I had to take a break, but I love writing. And so when I was released from prison, I really wanted to write about um, my testimony. I grew up in a very nice family, right? And they brought me to
Yeah.
church and sent me to a private Christian school, and I really felt like I'm one of the good guys. I mean, who very few people I think make an intentional
Yeah.
decision that they're going to be destructive and they're aiming for prison, right? That wasn't me, right? I was
Yeah.
just as surprised as everyone else that I was um, in that situation. So while I was in prison, I, I couldn't figure out how this had happened, but I didn't think my Christianity had anything to do with it or my upbringing. So then I was left just wondering, but I didn't search in that area.
Okay.
And my oldest son, when he was 21, I talked to him on the phone and he said, and I had sent him to Christian school like me,
Yeah.
but he's 21 now, and he said, I'm not sure God exists, and so he's just sharing his concerns.
Hmm.
And I thought, oh no, right? If this can happen to me, and I did believe all that, right, then I
Yeah.
really want to just do my best for him and try to help him with this.
Yeah.
Well, I went to try to inform myself, and realized, everything I had tried to teach my kids was secondhand information. You go
Hmm.
to church, your pastor tells you something, that's what you share. But when had I ever gone on my own and investigated and tried to read the Bible or know God? And so when I tried to do that for myself without a pastor as backup, I couldn't help my son. And that was really an eye opener for me, right? And how is he supposed to have that knowledge internalized if I don't? What am I trying to
Exactly.
share?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, well, I'll solve this. I'll read the Bible. And I made like this plan to read it in a year, and I couldn't even get through a week. And I'm an avid reader. I love reading. I'm a writer. Right? I love words.
Yeah.
I was the English tutor at prison for years. I love language. But I found it boring and difficult. And just couldn't even make myself read it. And so I put the Bible back on the shelf in my room and I just prayed, God, if you um, think it's important for us to read this, and to be honest, I didn't know. Is
Yeah.
everybody supposed to read it, or is it okay if someone else just teaches us what's in it? I don't know. But I said, if you want me to read it, you're going to have to make me want to because I'm struggling here. And I put it away,
Yeah.
and a couple of months went by, and I didn't really think about it anymore. And then in January of 2016, the prison had a lockdown, which can happen.
Mhm.
If there's a health issue with an inmate or a security concern, they just lock us all in our rooms. Sometimes it's not just hours, it can be days. And that's what happened. It was for days. And I ran out of library books to read. And so here's the Bible still there. And you know
Mhm.
how, I don't know if you've ever had someone else try to set you up on a date with someone you don't know, but you're thinking, this is going to be the worst date I've ever had, right? And then hopefully, if anybody is watching, it turned out to be the best date you ever had. But that's kind of what it felt like for me. I'm left with this loser of a book. I'm going to read it, but it's going to be the worst experience. Oh, I hate these lockdowns, right? So I sat down to read the book. And that was my expectation level at that point. And
Yeah.
instead, it was like falling in love at first sight. I had never read a more interesting, more captivating book in all my life. And it was spooky, right? It was spooky. And so I missed the meals. I fell asleep at like midnight with a Bible in my hand. And I woke up the next day and I was like, okay, that was a fluke because we all want to understand our world, right? We
Yeah.
want to, in a way that
Yeah.
experience tells us it works. And this made no sense, right? A book isn't boring and now it's the best book you've ever read. So I thought, well, I'm going to read it today. And then today I'll get to those boring parts that really put me off of the book months ago. Then I will understand there was just a few good parts, right? And then I will be
Yeah.
okay. This won't be weird. So I started reading again. And once again, it was the most interesting book I'd ever read. And I read it for like 12 hours and I fell asleep with it in my hand. So the third day I woke up and I was like, something strange is happening here. I don't know what it is. And, uh, but I kind of like it, right? There's good information here, there's good advice. And there was also, it wasn't what I expected. What I expected to see in there wasn't there, and things I didn't expect were. It was just this great mystery being opened up for me. So I started bringing it everywhere I went. I just started reading it all day, every day. My Bible literally fell to pieces. I had to tape it together and it still fell to pieces. So I got another one. That one fell to pieces. And there was good advice in it. Advice that I didn't think was possible for me to follow through because I knew myself. I mean, by this time I'm 40, turning 41 at that time. And I suffered serious depression my whole life. So I knew myself to be financially messy, lacked the reliability to budget, and I would out earn my overspending and try to, so no one would know that there's a problem here, right?
Yeah.
Um, I had trouble holding a job with reliable hours. And so I would work for myself, because I was the only one that would put up with my attendance record. Um, and the Bible
I
is
like that.
and the Bible is saying things here like I think one of the first things that really hit home was it said in the book of Timothy, you should provide for your relatives, especially those of your own household, because if you don't, you're worse than an unbeliever. Even they do that, and if you don't do it, you're not backing up your faith with action. And I have 5 children. And because
Mm-hmm.
I was still legally married at the time, they were not garnishing child support out of my checks. But there were other
Mm-hmm.
women at the prison that their checks were being garnished. Now, a paycheck might be $10 for 2 weeks' pay. And then they would garnish that with child support. And so I had friends who would get less than half their pay, and they might only have 1 or 2 children. And I realized that I was taking advantage of a loophole, right? A legal loophole in order to be selfish and have more money that I could spend on myself. And I was justifying it by saying, well, how would $5 help my kids? So then it's just fine if I keep it because it's food. I would rather, right? So I read that and thought, okay, that's convicting. I'm going to do it. But I didn't think it would last, right?
Yeah.
Because if you only have $10 every 2 weeks and you start taking some of that away, and in prison you provide for yourself your own laundry soap, your dish soap, your dishes, your a lot of your clothes, your hygiene at target prices. So I'm thinking this is going to end quickly because I'm going to need comfort food. And but I thought, well, I'm going to try it. And so I made a commitment to it, and months went by and I maintained it. And here's the thing, I'd gotten so depressed in prison that I had gained weight. I had gained about 70 pounds. And so if I showed you a picture of me at that time, you would not recognize me. In fact, my own son, the one who said he didn't believe in God anymore, came to visit me, and I had gained that weight really quick. I think it took maybe 5 months to go from 120 pounds to like 190. Right. So I gained it really fast. And he hadn't visited me during that time. And when he came to visit me, he came to the visiting room and I stood up and he looked the whole visiting room and didn't recognize me. I had to wave. I was like, it's me. And he's like, I was like, yeah, that I mean, I've changed so much. And so when I started paying child support, I had for years been trying to lose that weight. I gained in depression with no success. I couldn't make myself exercise consistently, couldn't make myself diet. I hated all of that. But because I couldn't buy junk food on Canteen, I'd committed this money to my kids. I lost all that weight in 6 months and went down to 115 pounds. I never dieted. I never did a lick of exercise. The weight was just coming off. And at the same time, God's giving me this ability to give child support. And I cannot tell you how validating that was for me. And so a
Yeah,
couple
I
of
bet.
things, yeah, were coming together for me in my mind is that God gave me the desire to read his word because he wanted a relationship with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was very intentional on his part. It was like God showing up and saying, hey, I want to get to know you. I want you to know me. And that was the first time in my life I ever felt utterly loved. Like there was no doubt that this could be anything but that, right? That was revolutionary to me. I can see God
Yeah,
trying to make people perform better because then we'd be like, well, who wouldn't want someone to perform better, right? But for someone to simply
exactly.
show up and say, read about me, just read about me, just
That is
there's no
super
other
cool.
purpose than that, right? Than to get to
Yeah.
know. And so the fact that he would want that and would want that with me, and it was so obvious that made me feel so loved, and then giving me the ability, I thought obeying him would be performing well, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that it was actually fixing unhealthy behaviors in my life that were causing me the very anxiety that was making me uncomfortable and
Yep.
miserable, and he was adjusting that through my obedience. And so suddenly I am a healthy weight. I'm starting to feel less depressed and validated. I was like, I can't do without him. What else? What else is possible? And it was so wonderful. And so that was the beginning. And he has showed up in so many ways that are fun and super exciting,
Yeah.
but also just really feel good, And I'm not a unicorn, not some special, like it was just me, right? Something that I know as a writer and as an author is that there are two types of stories. There are plot driven and there are character driven. A plot driven would be events happen and like a tornado comes into town and people react or respond, but they're not causing it. And that drives the story along. The other type is character driven. Most Well, I've met many people who see their life as plot driven. They're helpless victims of circumstance. They're doing nothing but reacting and responding. They don't
Yeah.
know how they got here. They don't know what
Hmm.
happened, how it happened. Right. But
Yeah.
then there are the types that it's character driven. The character initiates and causes events, right? And drives the story
Hmm.
along. And I saw myself as a character driven, and I was the main character, right? I'm initiating, causing events. I'm driving my own life story along with that. What this new revelation or illumination gave to me was that it is character driven, but God's the main character. His choices and actions are initiating events and causing things to happen that are driving my story along. And do you know how freeing that was to know that it doesn't depend on me? Success doesn't depend on me. Yes, I need to show up, right? But it's not all on my shoulders. And that also means that if I share my story, other people can have the same permanent transformation because it's not based on what I did, it's who I know. And all I need to do is share who I know. Right. And so I just want to do that. Right. Guess who I know?
Yeah.
Guess what he does? He did this for me. An author I really like is A.W. Tozer. And he was kind of C.S. Lewis's era. And he said, anything God ever did for anybody, God will do for anybody else. And I love that, you know.
Yeah, that's
So,
beautiful.
so that's why I am writing a blog about these stories I've just shared with you and many more, right? So that people can be encouraged and know that he did that for her. He can do that for me. He will do that for me. And then podcasting is just my blog being, and people ask me, they're like, I don't read. I like audiobooks. Is there an audio version? I'm like, well, I'm going to do the fun audio version.
I like the audio version too because when I'm
Yeah.
going to bed, I just put my AirPods in and I lay down. Even with my
Yes.
new job, I love it. And my
Yeah.
boss was telling about a book he was reading, so I wrote it down. I took a picture of the title and I went into Audible. And when you're working, I guess, and you're in training for 3 weeks, you're there for like what, 7, 8 hours, and you're learning, like you're driving home for an hour, but you're not still studying because a part of your brain is like, no, I got kids, I gotta like do this, I gotta clean this,
Yeah.
go here, run the errands. And I felt bad. So I justified by listening to the book one night, and just I go, well, I told him, I go, yeah, it was a great book until I fell asleep. I think it went off like I started at 9 and it got done at like 2 a.m. But like I'm missing a whole big chunk. Like I know I heard the first half of it. But parts of it, is teamwork and you had to learn about that and pulling together as a team. But anyways, but really quick, when you're telling me all this stuff, the word faith is coming to my mind really quick. And
Yeah.
that is something I want to jump into really quick. Do you know who Snap Bands is? They kind of look like this right here. I
Me
have
too.
one on called Faith and one called Hope. Imagine that. Okay, so now the Faith one is actually brand new to Snap Bands, and the only way you guys can get a Faith band is with their a promo code KHA. Keep Hope alive. So you can get them in different colors and everything, but you have to have that one. So, but really quick, I want to tell you about snap bands. Now, the world is a stressful place for everyone with work, school, relationships, health issues, finances, and nightly news. That's my favorite one. There's anxiety every day. Negative thoughts can keep popping into our head over and over again. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of anyone loving me. Bad things always happen to me. If you ever have these types of thoughts, you are not alone. More than 40 million Americans are diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. Anxieties, worries, and fears can stop you from finding inner peace and achieving your true potential. You deserve to live your best life. Finally, there's an amazing new bracelet called Snap Bands that was invented to help you reduce anxiety, control OCD, and calm stress. Snap bands are cognitive behavioral therapy tool based on proven brain neuroscience. And the way snap bands works is amazing. So snap bands bracelets look like a stylish piece of jewelry on your wrist, but its unique design actually hides a secret elastic band that sits right on your inner wrist, which is the pressure point for your brain's nervous system. When you give that elastic a little tug, you'll feel a very gentle, soft vibration on your inner wrist. A gentle physical sensation is all you need to reduce that anxiety. And here's why. Did you know the human brain can only deal with one emergency at a time? Well, whenever you feel unwanted negative thoughts in your head and gently snap the elastic on your inner wrist, it forces your brain to focus on a gentle physical sensation you feel, which instantly disrupts the unwanted negative thought from your brain. This gives you the freedom to reset your mind with positive mental focus. The mantra word on your snap bands bracelet helps you to refocus and reset. There are actually 8, but I'll say 7 different mantra words you can choose from: believe, blessing, dream, fearless, hope, love, and peace. And then, of course, faith with the code KHA. Just choose the mantra that resonates most powerfully to you. And after you snap, use that mantra word immediately to reset the positive mental focus. So, like, I believe in myself. I am fearless. I'm always going to have hope. So, we all know the terrible stigma. What I love about snap bands is actually when these get bought, they give it back, a portion back to the like mental health organizations, the snap out of the stigma. Now they come in a bunch of different colors. You see I have pink and black, but there's blue, there's green, there's white, there's brown, there's purple, red. I hope I named all the colors of the rainbow besides brown and black. So, and white. I don't think there's white in a rainbow, but they got all the colors they possibly need. So they are made out of vegan leather. And if you have sensitive skin, it doesn't irritate your skin at all. And then also they're waterproof. So I can do the dishes, take a shower with it on, probably even go swimming. So, but they're really cool. I want you guys to check them out at www.snapbands.com. Let me spell that. It is SNAPPBANDZ.com. So, and remember, if you want faith, you got KHA as your promo code. But other than that, Ollie, let's get to you really quick. So you were last saying about your podcast, and
Yes.
what's the name of your podcast?
So my podcast is called From Surviving to Living.
Uh-huh.
And my podcast is a hybrid. And so what that means is that it's right, most of it is a serial audiobook podcast. So I have a blog, and each post is another chapter in my book, I guess you could call it, of my testimony. And it chronicles my journey through prison, the 8 years there, and then the 5 years since, right? So that 13-year span. And there are some flashbacks to earlier times just for context, but that's the story.
Yeah.
And so from surviving to living, each episode is a blog post that I have then dramatized,
Uh-huh.
and also has me looking back in hindsight, in retrospect, that what do I know now that I didn't know then? Because a lot of my story is very traumatic. Um, I'm talking about emotional abuse and dehumanization and all sorts of really challenging topics. And at the time that I was going through those things, I didn't have many resources or much understanding. When you're in the middle of a storm, you only see the storm. You don't know where it came from, right?
Yep.
Or why you didn't leave before it got
Mm-hmm.
there, right? But
Yep.
years later, you can look back and you have the ability to do better next time by learning from the past. And so um, for me, that's applying biblical wisdom then, since reading the Bible. And I don't go into really deep expositories or anything, because I really believe that no matter where you are as a believer, whether you've been a Christian for 50 years or 2 days, that everybody needs to remember the foundational things, right?
Yep.
Um, and I think this sticking to the basics, or always reminding ourselves of the basics, that's not just a faith thing. I think that they say it in sports and in all sorts of things, right? Like if you forget
Yep.
the basics, you're gonna go astray. And so I remind people that really it's all about prayer, right? And faith
Mm-hmm.
and trust, those core things, and not these elusive other stuff that you might get into, right? Because
Trust.
no
I
matter
like
where you
trust.
are, you need that. Yes. So that's what the serial audiobook part of the podcast is me, putting to life those blog posts and, speaking through them and talking about them. And then recently I was given the opportunity to start recording in studio, in a television
Yay.
studio. Yeah. And I think that God did that because my story is not the only great story out there. There are so many. And I love hearing other people's stories and their advice, and all of the some people are helping people, some people have been hurt and now they're better, and some people have been hurt and now they're helping people. So all of that, to be able to share that. And so I added the From Surviving to Living spotlight, which is not just audio, it's in a television studio with guests, and that's been a new fun addition. Learning how to
Yay.
do all that and then meeting people and doing the interviews has been really fun. So yeah.
That is so cool. What a great experience.
Yeah.
That's something I aim to later on in life. I would love
Yeah.
to be in that part of it too. So, yeah, but getting to be so is it nerve-wracking sometimes being in front of a live
Well,
crowd?
well, it's pre-recorded, right? So
Yeah.
I don't have anybody but my sound person and the guests and me, or maybe some friends there, and we record it in the studio and then play it later. But it can be a little nerve-wracking because I think that I have really high standards. I want it to be good. I don't want it to be
Yeah.
distracting by me not knowing what I'm doing. I mean, I'm no
Yeah.
professional. I didn't go to college to be a journalist or anything, but I still want to do well. I want people to receive the message. And so there is a little bit about how can I do my best where I am not a distracting, what is she thinking, right? And that the real message can be given. I think most recently, so I'm learning about how lighting can affect all of this. So we went into the studio and I have my brand colors. And I was like, well, let's make the studio my brand colors. That'll be great. The whole studio will be my brand. Well, I said one of my brand colors is like a bright neon blue. And then I
Hmm.
sat in front of that light. That will do nothing for you. That is not flattering at all.
No.
And I did not think about that, right? And so then
Yeah, yeah.
after we got the recording, I was like, I couldn't even, I could hardly even look at myself. I was so horrified. I was like, I don't even know if I can air this,
I
So
I know.
yeah. So I think some of that too is God is really teaching me. I mean, it's important that we take good care of ourselves, but growing up and as a teenager and whatever, I was I think overly focused on being thin and
Mm-hmm.
looking perfect, perfect hair, trying to just really show up physically the best because mentally I was such a wreck, right? So let me distract you with what's going on here so that you don't see what's going on in here. And so I think there's nothing worse or more unflattering than being in front of a TV camera, period. Even with the best lighting, that's going to show. However, if you're vain, don't do it unless you have professional people on standby doing all your everything, right? And everything. But if you don't know and you sit in front of a neon blue light and then you get home, you're going to be like, oh, I can't believe I have any self-esteem left.
Oh, that's and
So,
yeah,
and my husband told me, he said, it's God can use everything that you made, and it's about the message. It's not about how you look on that camera. He said, what if you had gotten sick, right? But you had these guests. I mean, if you're sick, we go to work if it's not contagious, right? And so
yeah.
you need to get over the idea of it's all perfect and it's all about looks, and God's just rinsing that out of me.
You
So
know, I needed to hear that too because, like, even though they said I had no TIAs, I sometimes, when I'm listening and I look back at these podcasts, this eye is always smaller than this eye, and,
yeah,
the flip. But when I tell my doctor, I don't know, it's just you being picky of yourself. And I'm like, no, do you want to watch the podcast? Like, you'll see what I see, and I don't know how to fix it. No, 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 like it was basically all in my head. But it's
yeah,
so weird because each time I look back, I see it when I do my makeup. I'm like, okay, you know what? I've come to a point. I'm on Zoom. Zoom, hi.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
hi. I'm glad you have a filter. However, this is who I am. God
yes,
made me who I
yes,
am. I show up sick at times.
yep,
People can't tell I have a chronic illness and
yeah,
pain.
yep,
And, I was telling one of my coworkers that you would have never known I had 3 kidney stones come out this week. And
mhm,
I've lived with pain since 2002, that it's sad that the tears are just not always coming out, but I'm
yeah,
crying on the inside so hard. And
yeah,
then, also I had to change a few things before I started my new job, but I was in the hospital before my new job. And they
yeah,
diagnosed me, I can't even say like the name, it's so long, but basically my intestines
mm,
is not doing good from a surgery I had, the bypass.
yeah,
So they need to go right away. This is what the hospital said. They need to go in right away and do a surgery on me. So
mm,
I've just like left it in God's hands because I'm like, what am I going to do? They want
yeah,
me to constantly watch. The pain is real, but there's times you have to be real and true to yourself. If you don't feel good, you don't feel good. You know what?
yep,
I got to take a me time, personal health, day, go
yeah,
get checked, whatever it is. But there's times I find myself at the hospital going, I need a laptop. I want to do a podcast.
yeah,
I was stuck without my laptop the last time and I was admitted for 3 days so they could figure this out about the surgery. And I think I went stir crazy because I was like, dude, I'm like not being productive here. And I took one of the nurse gave me her pens, but it was paperwork because I don't live in Dallas County. I'm like, Colin. So I couldn't sign up for any of their like health insurance stuff. So I started writing all these notes for the podcast down. And one of the nurses, oh, do you want me to make you a notebook without the spiral thing? And I'm like, yes. But she
nice,
gave me the best gift in the world of being in the hospital, kind of stuck, paper and a pen. As a
yeah,
podcaster, we need that because our creative
yep,
minds flow with ideas.
yep,
So I don't look at it as, okay, God, I was here for a reason. we got this figured out. We know what it is. We know what surgery I have to get right away. But I'm just like, you take the wheel. I know I'm in pain. I know it hurts to eat and
Yeah.
everything. It's just like, but I'm still gonna do what I was set out for. If I can go to my
Yeah.
new job, it's kind of sad because when I'm sitting down listening, training, I'm perfectly fine. But I have
Yeah.
all this like really bad pain that I kind of like keep my hand cuffed there because
Yeah.
I got like if you have back surgery, that thing they wrap around you to make it
Mhm.
tighter. And
Yep.
that's what I want. And I'm like, where do I get that? Like I want that so I just don't have the pain there. But
Yeah.
I don't want
Yep.
I want to hide it. I'm going on a tangent, girl. It's all about you right now. So,
I understand though, after the first time we recorded my first live, our first guest interview on, I looked at it and I thought, I need a new hairdo, I need new clothes, I need to start working out. What else can I do for myself? Maybe I need hire some people to give me some advice on these things, and
yeah,
then I just had to take a break and stop and think. Um, this is really, I need to be comfortable with myself, and
yes,
that's just, it's just old things coming up, right, that maybe I never dealt with, but maybe I'm in a better place now to do that work.
yeah,
Maybe when I was
yeah,
younger, I couldn't do that work, and so now is the time. So
to do it.
it
Yeah,
is.
definitely. Yeah.
So if you
So,
see
like,
me not looking my best on a podcast, know that it's okay. just
yeah, me
just
too.
working through that.
Dude, I just got off of work. My hair is gonna look, I brushed it before going on, but look at this strand and this strand, and can you see the gray? I
Yeah,
was like, one of my sponsors here is TK Hair Salon. They always do my hair, but it was so funny.
that's
I was
nice.
like driving, going, I need to get back there. I just really need to get back. And
Hmm.
I was like, do
Yep.
I want to do a new style? Do I want to do something cute? And I was like, well, if
Yep.
I'm gonna go get my hair done, I want to have like 6 podcasts lined up that day. So they do good work.
Yes. Yeah. That's cute. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of questions. We got the podcast, we got the blogs. What's next for you? Are you going to continue writing more? And,
Yes.
what is your social links if somebody wanted to go and listen to you or read your blogs, where can they go?
So my blog is at hollybot.me. That's my name, HOLLYBOT.me. And I think what I will probably do is get to a certain point, maybe when I leave prison, and then compile that into a published book,
Yeah.
which is, I have another book I've written, and that's what that book is. It's from my previous blog, just taking the most popular blog posts, the most inspirational, motivational, and putting them together into a published book. So I'll probably do that, but I'll be continuing to write in my blog. And the next segment, of course, will be post release from prison and what that looks like. And I think when I have enough blog posts from that, that will go into another published book. And so I love blogging because it gives you the opportunity to write the material and then revisit it,
Yeah.
and it's really good therapy. So that's the idea for writing. And the podcast, I think, will follow along with the blog. I love doing that. It's so much fun adding
Yeah.
music and talking through it. And I feel like I'm really sharing my story with the people who are listening when I'm recording it. So that's just super fun. And then for the Spotlight podcast, um, I'm excited to see what's going to happen with that. I don't know. I am learning not only how to use a podcast studio, but an actual television studio, and then how to go out in the field with cameras so that I could, maybe some people can't leave their house, but I could come to them and still have good equipment. So there's so many exciting possibilities there.
Yes, there
And I,
is.
I just like to explore them all. For me, it's part of a creative journey. Um, I'm an artist. I paint, I draw, I make things, I create things. So this is for me just exploring all the, whatever, my personality with this media. So
It
we'll
is
just see what happens. I
awesome.
don't know. Yeah, yeah,
I loved hearing all about you. Like, you're an amazing woman and everything. So, and I'm glad you have this n- you have it charted out. I'm a planner, but you know where you're going to be
yeah,
going.
yeah,
And, as I was listening to you talk, I go, I love her energy. I love her soul.
yeah,
You can tell you've been through a lot, but you made the best out of it and you made
yeah,
really, really good decisions. And, hearing the story about, faith and where that lies and who believes what, not everybody in the world is going to believe. I get that. I understand that. For me, I I'm not gonna hold back. Yeah, I believe my son actually believes, and it used to be I go to church, take a break for a year,
yeah.
and my son is only like 11 years old, and he's like, "Mom," I was like, "Yeah," and he's like, "I need to serve," and I'm like, uh, my voice was like, okay, so do you want to go back to our old church?" And he's like, "Yeah." I go, "Okay, so the Sunday school that I had you in, you're okay with that?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm ready to go back in class." And I'm like, "Okay, we got this," So I took
Yeah.
him. He loved it. It was 3, 4 weeks in there. And I remember sitting in church by myself. And you see everybody there, and they have a loved one with them and stuff. And I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't want to get sad. I was trying to be like, okay, God, there is a bigger plan for me. But what I like about my church, they talk about hope a lot and
Hmm.
faith, of course. And,
Yeah.
hearing those messages, it's just helped me with each Sunday starting off my week. I got this. I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
Doing the interviews before I took this new job, that was the light of the world. And it was
Yeah.
just amazing. So,
Yep.
but, having you on here, you're another light. And, your story is amazing. And I know I want to go and listen to your podcast and everything. I I
Yep.
know with Keep Hope Alive, the first season, like I never wanted to do YouTube. And in fact, it was one or two of my sponsors actually. They were like, "We really want to see you on YouTube." And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't want to. I was enjoying just the audio part, being
Yeah.
able to tell a story. And, but I was like, that's not the same as what I did for Webcast. That's the company that I had before. And I was showing my face, and I go, you know what? I just got to get over that one too. So if
Yeah.
there's a blooper, there's a blooper. I don't sit
Yeah.
here and edit, edit, edit. No, if you say something goofy, you say something goofy. So,
Yes, I like that.
it's like being in customer service. If you make a mistake on the phone, what are you going to do? Can we rewind? Let's
Y-
start over, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
But so it's very different. So I want to say thank you. And guys, if you have any questions for Holly, you can call us on our number at 833-780-HOPE, which is 4673. And I will pass along any messages that you may have for her, and she'll get those answered for you. So, and then, of course, you can always find us at www.keephopealivepodcast.com. But really quick, I wanted to thank our other sponsors who make Keep Hope Alive afloat in the air. So we did talk about lifeonrecord.com, your interactive guest book for events. And we also talked about snapbands.com, the bracelets that reduce anxiety, OCD. You know what? I'm not gonna lie, I got PTSD from medical stuff, but it helps me when I feel like things are too much for me, or like it feels like a panic attack coming, and I'm like, get it away, please, God. I hope if there's things you can help me just trigger this out, So, but it's definitely something I've had mine on. I guess it's been more than 2 months for hope. With faith, I think it's been 1 month or something like that. But I love it. You know, when I can sit there and hear the sermon say faith and hope at the same time, I just pull up my sleeve and hey, so, but definitely. I also would like to thank Ogden Ventures LLC, Marcus Ogden. He's a former NFL player, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and podcast host. You can find him at www. Marcus, which is spelled Marquess, Ogden, OGDEN.com. We also have bridalshowsinc.com. If you are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area planning a wedding or a special event, they have about 5 to 6 trade shows maybe out of the year. And you can go visit all these vendors. They're showcasing their work, get their information, book them, of course. That's what the whole trade show's for. So, but I love it. I love their fashion shows. I sat in on the one they had in, what was it, January, and I couldn't believe my eyes. This tells you my age, which is 46. Wedding dresses, right? They were showing black wedding dresses, and I'm like, for me, I feel old at age 46. I was like, where's white? Where's the beige and ivory? Like, where is all the, you know? But it was black. It was gorgeous. And, it's like that you could probably wear again too, because it looks like an evening gown. So you might get multi-purposes with that gown. So our next one is milesandSmilesEvents.com. Deborah Rose. Her background is investigator. She tells the truth. So, but for events, she is a handwriting analysis and lipstick reader and 100% accurate. I've seen her with her events and she is amazing. So please check out her stuff. Then we have Bryce Harney at www.brycemagic.com. You've probably seen him on TV or even YouTube, but of course, he's a mind mentalist and magician, and he is so good at what he does. I would say, hey, go to YouTube next, check out Bryce Harney, of course, check out all our wonderful sponsors, but it's just amazing the work he does. We also have richmondpunch.net. Richmond graduated from the Juilliards. He is a violinist. He's played in front of a million people before. I know he's been in business longer than me, so I'm gonna just say 30 years. So, but he's had a couple I guess you would say show spot sections playing the violin for lifetime shows, which is really cool. But he is here in Dallas going on tour. So you can check out his dates. I post everything on our Facebook, social media too. And of course, tkhairsalon.com, located in Plano, Texas. If you need your hair done, men, women, children, they do updos, colors, perms. They know how to get the gray out, make it last. So check them out. And other than that, wherever you guys find your podcast, you're going to be able to find Keep Hope Alive. So once again, Holly, well, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love your story.
Yeah.
I love everything about it. And I definitely want to catch up with you maybe next year and kind of get an update, see where you're at and
Yeah.
everything.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been really a pleasure getting to talk to you and
Oh,
getting to know you. Yes.
oh, thank you. I feel the same way. So thank you guys.
Yeah.
Until our next show, you guys, love and light. That sounds all country from Texas. Bye, guys.